In 2015, world leaders signed up to the most ambitious agenda of our times. 17 goals, 169 targets. The Sustainable Development Goals will leave no one behind. SDGs call for big ideas to trigger scale, trillions in investment, unlimited innovation. India will be the stage where this will happen, and it needs your attention. The returns on investments on the implementation of the SDGs is an estimated $30 billion per year. In India, this is no longer an aspiration. It is already happening. India's LED replacement program aims to replace energy-guzzling bulbs and lighting systems with LED bulbs, which consume only a fraction of electricity. In 5 years, India will set up 25 solar parks with over 20,000 megawatt capacity. Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and Mobile aims to transform millions of lives financially and digitally, innovating to find new markets, expanding businesses, adopting technologies, improving the bottom line for business and society. Drive business, drive sustainable growth. Invest in the SDGs now.
Great.
So you see, we've got a rather huge agenda looming ahead of us. Energy, affordable housing, gender, health, and education. All these sectors are crying out for immediate help. And we also heard from the opening remarks earlier today that achieving the Sustainable Development Goals will open up for the world $12 trillion and generate 380 million new jobs by 2030. From the Better Business, Better World India report that will be launched tomorrow, it is very clear that achieving these goals just here in India alone opens up at least $1 trillion in market opportunities and will generate 72 million new jobs by 2030. We certainly want that, don't we? And we also need it right now. So to get into things deeper and discuss government priorities, the market challenges and opportunities, and examples of corporate leadership with our wonderful group of experts who will let us in on their views and priorities for driving impact for the SDGs in India. Please warmly welcome our speakers for this discussion who will be sharing their perspectives. We have with us Rekha Menon, Chairman and Senior Managing Director, Accenture in India, Mahendra Singhi, the CEO of Dalmia Cement, Namita Vikas, who's the Group President and Global Head of Climate Strategy and Responsible Banking at Yes Bank, and Ruchi Mohanty, who is the Head of Private Sector Partnerships at the UN Resident Coordinator's Office. Please welcome all our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. So let me again, at this point, encourage you to write down your questions. I know that I didn't pull out any of those questions, but we will be answering those questions as we proceed during the day. Use the hashtag Global Goals Local Business and tweet them to us as well. Thank you for joining us today. I will begin with Rekha. What do you think, Rekha, are some of the biggest challenges and opportunities that lie ahead from a business or a market perspective for you at Accenture? And what do you see happening out there? You can, of course, speak from that podium.
So thank you. I hope you can hear me. Yes. All right. First of all, thank you very much. I'm really pleased to be here. And what, as you suggested, that I'll just focus on what are the challenges from an India perspective that we see from a market perspective, and what are therefore the opportunities. But just a bit of context before that. Accenture is, we've jumped, but anyway, we have at Accenture signed the UN Global Compact, and therefore, because we strongly believe that you can do both good business, profitable business, but at the same time do good for the community that we live and work in. So with that, India has come a long way, but there are still many challenges to be overcome. As you can see from these numbers, we are nowhere near there, and the current model of development really is not moving fast enough, and at the same time, it's not moving equally enough across our states, different states, or in different segments. And unfortunately, in some of the areas, there's actually been a slippage. I mean, just to take one example, our gender ratio has slipped unfavorably. From a policy perspective, there have been many efforts to address these issues. You know, the Right to Food Security Act, the Right to Free and Compulsory Education, the Swachh Bharat campaign. These are all steps in the right direction. But if we look at the, how do I move to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. But if we look at all this long list of challenges that India faces, it requires more than just the government and the civil society to meet these challenges. And from my perspective, the good news is that the challenges and the constraints actually offer a massive opportunity to do well by doing good. And we are starting to see many examples of that. If you could go to the next slide, please. Because I see this as offering a compelling growth opportunity. We've heard many numbers being talked about earlier, about $1 trillion in India and about 70 million job options. And in each of these segments, if you see, just the priority segments, which is food and agriculture, health and well-being, cities, energy and material, each of them is potentially worth more than $200 billion of opportunity just in India, an equivalent amount of employment being offered. So therefore, and we also heard in the earlier panel about corporate social responsibility for the companies. And my take is this is not about CSR. It's actually a very business imperative. And therefore, organizations can move from doing the 2% CSR to actually seeing this as a corporate social opportunity, a massive business opportunity, which at the same time you can do good for society and stay sustainable. If you could move to the next slide, please. So there are just some examples that we have. There's already much happening in India, and I'm not going to drain the slides because I have just 1 minute left. But there are many examples of where organizations are starting to do both, make profits, but at the same time, use the SDG framework to benefit themselves, but at the same time, meet some of the SDG goals. Many examples, I know some of them are speaking here or are at the sessions later, so I'm not going to talk to any one of them. But the only point I do want to make is the opportunities are immense. So this is more than a moral imperative. For organizations, it's really a business imperative. And that's, so I would say that from a business perspective and market perspective, massive opportunities. We do need some regulatory mechanisms change, and we can debate that. We do need some enabling policies. We do need some more innovative approaches for organizations in India to be allowed to fail. But overall, I would say massive opportunity available and lots happening in this space. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rekha. And I really like the recoining of that term of CSR to CSO, or maybe it should be CSI, making it corporate social imperative or corporate social opportunity. Thank you so much for giving us the bigger perspective on this canvas. Let me now turn to Mr. Singhi and ask you, as CEO of one of the country's leading cement suppliers, what does leadership for the SDGs look like in India today?
Sure.
And what are the most exciting projects for you?
Yes.
And as you partner outside of Dalmia Cements, would you like to shed some light on that?
It's a bit longer, but yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
You've got 5 minutes, sir.
Maybe more. Maybe more. respected dignitaries, and dear friends, as we gather here today to apply our thoughts and assess the actions to make global goals local business, and through this, create a sustainable world of tomorrow, I would like to invoke the Rig Veda, the oldest scripture of humankind, which has timeless and universal appeal, which says in Sanskrit, Ano Bhadra Kratavo Yantu Vishwata. In English, it means, let noble thoughts come to us from all over the world. And for us, for India, today, the world is here, and I would request all of you to guide India to be a sustainable India. Friends, in India, we began our efforts for sustainability development 70 years ago, at the time of independence, and this journey of sustainability continues. It has come in many, many ways, but still this long journey is continuing. In this period since independence, our annual per capita income has gone up by tenfold. GDP growth rate has risen from 2.3% to 7%. Poverty ratio has declined from more than 60% to less than 25%, and average life expectancy has gone up to 68.4 years. Literacy has gone up 18 to 74%. Further, India has transformed itself from a poor, underdeveloped country to a third largest economy in the world in PPP terms, though still it is known as an emerging economy. I believe India, with its ancient wisdom of seeing and treating the world as one family, of co-opting nature in life, and intrinsic habits of sustainability, can offer ideas and solutions for the globe also to emulate. Our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, said at the UN Summit on SDGs, we see Sustainable Development Goals as a comprehensive development goal and comprehensive set of aspirations to meet our lofty vision. Our government has entrusted Niti Aayog, a project initiative to transform our world, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Initiatives like Make in India, Digital India, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, Skill India, Smart Cities, Startup India, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Gram Jyoti Yojana, and so many such initiatives which will be helping the humanity at large in the country. Let me also acknowledge UN Global Compact for being the first UN initiative to recognize the full potential of business enterprise. Just at the turn of this century, Global Compact bridged the UN directly with business houses, leaders. About 12,000 global businesses embraced the 10 principles. It's a sign of a globally convergent process helping provide business with a deep sense of purpose. Now, let us see what has happened since the turn of the century. On the one hand, there is an increasing influence of creating social equity. On the other hand, there is a growing realization that several critical intangibles like trust, credibility, reputation, goodwill are vital and must be integrated into every business as a multi-stakeholder model. A study from leading coalition of accounting bodies showed that the total global enterprise value stood at 90 trillion US dollars. Out of this, only $43 trillion, which is less than half, were traditional, tangible, and visible assets of business. But 47 trillion were intangibles. Investors across the world soon realized that traditional assets were at the high risk of being unsustainable compared to assets like trust, reputation, brand, goodwill, relationship, intellectual property, knowledge, and other form of biodiversity in nature. In fact, for India, bringing the intangible perspective into business is indeed important. As a nation, we are high on soft power of culture and practice. The possibilities for sustainable growth are higher, and businesses can more readily address long-term stakeholders' expectations. With these developments in the broader context of a more sustainable world of tomorrow, there will be a radical change in the way we conduct our future business. Now, friends, let me share some observations on our Indian business sector. The business interest on triple bottom line performance, from profit-centric to people, planet, and profit, is increasingly visible now, and it's a new business as usual. Today, businesses are prepared to invest more than $2.5 billion annually towards eradication of key development challenges such as hunger and poverty, promotion of gender equality, women empowerment, and ensuring environmental sustainability through their corporate social activities. Companies are working to maximize the impact by entering into partnerships and creating multiplier effects. Businesses now realize that growth without adversely impacting the environment is a new normal. While businesses are working on many challenges, there is a clear trend of making a significant impact on water-related challenges, deployment of renewable energy, and cleanliness drive in areas of influence. Let me now share something about the cement sector. Concrete is the second most consumed commodity in the world after water, and cement is the key constituent. Cement fulfills humanity's critical needs for shelter, infrastructure, and industry. In that sense, cement is key vector for sense of fulfillment and happiness, which are universal human desirables. Having said that, we all know that all human activities interfere with nature. In the case of industry, particularly cement industry, the impact can be fairly significant. This only underlines the critical need for the industry to recognize and minimize this impact and to the maximum extent compensate for its activities. A sensitive, responsible, and mature manner of business operations which minimize the ecological impact is necessary. I am happy to say that cement industry has accepted the principle and has been addressing these concerns with great responsibility. By virtue of large operations spread all across, it creates opportunities for employment, education, skill development, community development, and waste management. This is equally true of huge economic value the industry creates nationally through backward and forward linkages, which extends far beyond cement-specific activity. Industry's voluntary participation in the Cement Sustainability Initiative, a sector project of World Business Council for Sustainable Development, which addresses key areas such as CO2 and climate protection, responsible use of raw materials, health and safety, water, emission reductions, impacts on land, has brought pioneering positive impacts in an industry which is perceived differently. The participation of Indian Cement Company is significantly higher worldwide. Cement Sustainability Initiative annually organizes a CSI forum of Calibrate Global Cement Industry is a subject matter of sustainability, and this year in September, now CSI will be having annual global forum to enforce and to promote sustainability development goals. Now, at our Dalmia Bharat group, since 1939, we have practiced the ethos of inclusiveness to the extent that it is now embedded in our DNA. Our corporate governance and business practices are led by our vision, which says to be a leader in building materials that evoke pride in all stakeholders through customer centricity, innovation, sustainability, and our values. We sincerely believe that good begets good. The more you serve society for right objectives, better you become on all types of capitals, including human capital, natural capital, manufacturing capital, social capital, and relationship capital.
Mr. Sanghi, you'll have to interrupt. You'll have to be quicker.
Yes. Driven by our vision, 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, we've got
Yes.
more panelists
Yes.
to speak as well.
Yes.
So,
Driven by our vision, we constantly seek and invest in benchmarking of global excellence. And key result has been that we have been one of the best in cement sector in terms of sustainability, in terms of profitability, in terms of growth. The policies have now also led to exponential growth in our capacity building. We have now become the cement company, which has the lowest carbon footprint worldwide. And this has been the result of whatever sustainability practices we have adopted. Similarly, in our case, we have addressed various sustainability development goals in one way or other, which has been given in these slides, which shows that we are conserving natural resources, we are conserving water, and we are trying to be now water positive. We have also committed ourselves for using renewable energy by 2030. The whole thing is that we have become the first cement company in the world to commit ourselves for renewable energy. The whole purpose is that we have understood that sustainability begets profit also, sustainability begets the better capitals also. So let me, because of lack of time, I'll not hold much, but then we have created a roadmap which says that yes, we have to serve the society through various water initiatives, various renewable energy initiatives, various clean energy, and this will help us in ultimately becoming a most respectable, sustainable corporate citizen. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We are trying to create leadership for our sustainability. Thank you.
thank you very much. And I hope that Dalmia Cement really takes the first step forward to change the industry and make sure that they are trying to use just renewable energy and save water and save the environment, as well as progress and develop for the nation. So we'll move now on to the financial market perspectives, and we have Namita Vikas here with us. So Namita, how do you invest in the SDGs? What are some of the most important tools that you would use towards financing the Sustainable Development Goals? If I could get you to.
Thank you very much. I think finance is one of the core elements that's going to drive the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals. It's a pleasure to be here today and discuss the role of the private sector, particularly financial institutions, in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. So sustainability is increasingly being recognized as a sound long-term business logic. The challenge before us is to do more to mobilize resources and scale up the transition to economies to inclusive and sustainable models, really. And thanks to the UNGC for bringing the action agenda to India. It's much required given the quantum of challenges that we face. While 2015 really marked the global goals, the year 2016 has seen heightened conversations, beginning an era of implementation. And this era now needs to be backed with specific and tangible actions, which will require multi-actors to pool in concerted efforts to achieve the steep challenges that really lie ahead of us. Over the last 2 decades, the entire landscape of global business has witnessed major shifts. One cannot deny the influential role that the private sector plays and accounts for almost about 60% of the global GDP, 80% of capital flows, and 90% of jobs in developing countries. Now, this data undoubtedly points in the direction, making the private sector's contribution and influence significant and giving rise to an urgent need for it to evolve as a key player in a kind of a blended expertise along with governments and civil society. Implementation of SDGs, apart from the intent, a strong will, stable and pragmatic policies need a huge amount of institutional capital in the tune of about 90 trillion US dollars, and therefore a complete reorientation in terms of quantum of investments, source of investments, and destination of investments that would sit at the core of financial institution strategies. This really needs to then look at a complete rehaul, a new responsible, inclusive, resilient financial system that needs to deliver on these financial flows. SDGs financing as a business case is not a moral obligation, but seen as a huge economic opportunity of $7 trillion by bankers, which would contribute to livelihoods, quality education, reliable infrastructure, higher productivity, and low-carbon sustainable growth, especially in India, given the huge deficit on all these counts. To my mind, embedding SDGs into core financing and delivering the much-needed transformation for India would require, firstly, really deciphering the 17 SDGs in correlation to its impact. For financial institutions to be excited about SDGs, these need to be translated, decoded to a language that clearly shows the opportunity in tangible terms for mainstreaming finance to flow towards developmental initiatives. For example, at Yes Bank, we map our investments across each of the global goals, which has been acting as a baseline for us since the release of the goals in 2015. And this has really enabled the bank gauge its SDG performance and determine the future investments that we make. The SDG Compass, developed by GRI, UNGC, and WBCSD, is fully leveraged by us to evaluate impact and the economic and social value that is being created by the bank. My second point is on innovating financial products and services to positively impact the SDGs, which has become an imperative. There are over 3 billion people at the bottom of the pyramid, which serves as a huge market that needs to be looked at. And at Yes Bank, we found this to be a valuable proposition that meets business needs as well as the developmental objectives and launched specific initiatives to cater to the underserved. We saw an opportunity within the dairy sector, which is the largest contributor to the agriculture GDP in India, and enabled farmers to get instant account credit for services rendered through innovative financing, leveraging technology. Such products have not only helped us crack the credit cycle, but provide access to finance to the unbanked and create a win-win for both the farmer, the dairy, thus fostering financial inclusion and serving the bottom of the pyramid. The next point is on developing financial instruments that really create a multiplier to increase the quantum of sustainable finance. In the past, we have seen how grants have been serving developmental needs. However, going forward, instruments like blended finance are fast emerging, which couple the benefits of grants with mainstream finance and surely are a game changer in the development finance space. Blended finance throw a large opportunity for leveraging funds like the Green Climate Fund or the GEF that can be then used to mitigate risks and increase viability of financing for underbanked sectors like rooftop solar, water, sustainable agriculture, fisheries. These are very, very key and important to the Indian market. Overall, investing in awareness raising and building capabilities is extremely essential. SDG literacy or climate literacy is much needed for the private sector to draw the correlation with core business strategies, new product development, and taking advantage of the emerging opportunities. We have seen examples of how the Niti Aayog, which is the government of India's think tank, has been given the responsibility to work with ministries to map the SDGs and outline targets to ensure implementation. Similarly, such a reporting mechanism is much needed within businesses and financial institutions, which can form then part of annual reports, which can then be accessed by institutional investors and stock exchanges asking for this information, which would really drive the reporting mechanisms and monitor the progress of how we are performing on SDGs. In conclusion, what I would like to say here is that SDGs undoubtedly require a quantum leap from business as usual to business unusual. And the private sector needs to adopt a localized framework, which looks at developing an integrated thinking that recognizes the risks and opportunities posed by SDGs and suitably responding to complexities imposed by developmental challenges, bringing considerations into mainstream thinking, strategizing and reporting through solutions, optimization of resources that would ultimately create value and unleash the sustainable economy development that leaves no one behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Namita. Well, clearly, the scenario is pretty complex, and India brings to the table far more complexity than each of us know. Ruchi, I will turn to you now as representing the UN and the UNDP. When you look at the complexities that India brings to the table, do you think that we are ready to take on the challenge of the SDGs, and what is the role of the private sector in being able to find a solution for this? If you could also shed some light on the areas that, in your view, India should focus on and not take on the entire challenge, but really prioritize our SDGs and goals and say, okay, these are the areas that India should concentrate on. So if you could expand on that.
Thank you, Rini. And in the interest of time, I'd like to be as brief as possible. Good afternoon, friends, and a very warm and special welcome to those who have come all the way to India to attend the forum and the convention. Let me start by saying that we all heard today, and Liz spoke about it, that India would account to 50% of the global goals. And if India doesn't make its progress, we will fail almost 50% of it. This would mean that tackling poverty, ending hunger, making affordable energy solutions accessible to all, improving the quality of healthcare and education while achieving gender equity, all of this and much more would be required, so on. So definitely, businesses play a very vital role. They play a crucial role. They are not outside of this process. And we heard our fellow parliament members speak about the kind of work that's happening on the Sustainable Development Goals, the kind of interventions that they're taking up, not only through CSR, but also as part of their core business. So definitely they were part of setting up this global agenda and are natural partners in its implementation. And this is when, really, these opportunities can be fostered and our challenges turn into these big opportunities. And that's how Liz spoke about the global 14 trillion opportunity and India-specific opportunity of $1 trillion USD. Prime Minister Shri Modi, while signing on to the global goals at the UN summit, spoke about the Sustainable Development Goals, and he said that the sustainable development of the 1/6 of the world is going to be pivotal and of great consequence to the world. And while we speak of business opportunities on one end of the spectrum, which would mean that we create access to new markets, we open consumer awareness, adoption, better return on investments, and much more. Another end of the spectrum would be how well interrelated and interconnected are each of these goals. And that's the important aspect, which would mean that each goal, without focusing on all 17 of them, is a force multiplier in itself. So economic empowerment of women, for example, is linked to better GDP. All of us are aware about it. Innovation and use of technology will provide us better access in energy. Quality education will lead to better healthcare at the household level. Perhaps better agriculture productivity will help us tackle our goal 1 on ending poverty and our goal on ending hunger. So government is, I would say, making a fair start. In the last 2 years have been a good start. Obviously, the challenge is too large, and the government today is trying to leverage the political opportunity provided by the SDGs by removing the barriers and creating a strong partnership environment. And I think that is very pivotal, and that's very important. Speaking about the recent meeting that happened, and the minister spoke about it on Sunday, the 3rd Governing Council meeting of NITI, which is also the agency that's reporting and presenting on behalf of India together with 40 other nations at the high-level political forum in New York very soon, has clearly outlined and highlighted the need to focus on partnerships, the need for clean and off-grid energy, the need for disruptive technologies, and using big data for innovation and planning. It's here that private sector can actually play a catalytic role for the advancement of these goals. And it's here that lies the big opportunity, because we cannot achieve all this without the help of private sector. And I hope nobody in the room feels that one stakeholder alone can do it, whether it's the government, whether it's the private sector, it's civil society, or anybody else. And it's therefore important that all of us collaborate, all of us come together, join our resources. And Namita spoke about it, the need for blended finance, the need for moving away from funding to financing, and that's a very vital part that UN is increasingly focusing on, because with our limited resources, how do we use them in a catalytic way? How do we use them intelligently? And I would like to close on to the discussion by highlighting the last part of the question wherein he said, what is it that we need to immediately focus on? I would say, one, the need of the hour is collaboration and coming together. Two, stop reinventing the wheel. There's already a lot of intelligence. There's already a lot in terms of pilots and best practices that's available in this country and globally. Number three, need for data generation, disruptive technologies, and innovative technology. I'd like to close here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ruchi. My panel, Rekha, Ruchi, Mr. Singhi, and Namita, they've really given us a very passionate and animated response to some of the looming challenges that lie ahead of us, and I can't really wait to see what's next for all of us. Can we turn these challenges into opportunities? That is the million-dollar question. And with India touted as one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and with strong leadership from business, government, and civil society, I'm sure that India can prepare itself very well to meet these challenges and turn awareness into concrete action. So thank you very much to my panelists. I'm really humbled by the strong commitments and action that is being taken globally and locally in advancing the 2030 agenda. My prayer remains that we all continue to be inspired to lead the way and to get to work as soon as possible.